It's up to you. But I'm saying, if you look at it, if you give a lot of credit, if you have a lot of stories around anything that has occurred, negative, positive, neutral, you just keep that whole thing boiling all the time. And the distance between, the distance is widened between your liberation, between now, this present moment. Liberation is here. It's right there. It's already the case. If we don't stir everything up and fuss with everything and blame this and accuse this and accept that and validate and push and pull and push and pull. And everyone has their own way of doing it. Some people are very obvious. Some people are very, very subtle, and it isn't even obvious to anyone. They look very stoic when actually they're in a turmoil too. But they just don't show it as much. Different style. Passion, aggression, and ignorance.
How do you know when you're trusting yourself?
You don't know what you're going to do. You don't know. You actually don't know. That's trust. If you know what you're going to do, that's not trust. That's knowing what you're going to do. That's a relative situation with up and down, night and day, back and forth. But when you're in a situation where you don't know what you're going to do, but you're moving in, you're actually going ahead, you're trusting yourself. When I say trust yourself, then people will maybe come back, like I said before, and say, well, you know what I'm talking about. People will say, well, I'm doing this. And I say, well, why don't you try that? Well, you said trust myself, and that's what I'm doing. In other words, I'm not doing what you suggested. I'm doing what I suggest because I'm trusting myself. That's not trust. That's buying into your thought patterns and believing your ideas and your opinions and so on. No, trust is space, open space. Not separating oneself from the unknown. More?
So how do you practice not knowing?
One way is to sit down and not know the wall, not know the floor, to practice being here without doing anything about anything. Because that's actually a form of not knowing. You're actually unplugging your food processor mind. And, well, the idea is to do that. Some people, when they sit, continue to crank up things because that's the only way they can manage to stay there for any length of time. Because if they allow there to just be space, it's just too difficult. So they will deliberately daydream. How do I know? I've done it. I've done a ton of that. In retreat, I've done where I could not stand to be there, so I would just deliberately generate some fantasies so I could stay there longer. And then I would eventually go back and just settle down and look at the floor and just be there. So trust is about no particular motion, and yet the only time you do anything is always you might say, in concert with everything else around you. So this might require this, that might require this. There'd be no thought pattern about it, you would just do it. You might find, trust means functioning in such a way that you're really connected with people, but you're not going along with their bullshit. In other words, you're not worrying about what they're going to think of you. If you say something funny, or if you swear, or if you get mad, or if you get happy for no reason. Lock that man up. He's way too happy. So you trust. What medication? I said meditation, not medication. No, trust is about just dancing with it. Just dancing. I just recently named somebody Dancing Cloud because they've got a ton of energy and they, don't know how to dance. They know how to dance, but when they start thinking about it, then they freeze up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So trust feels very, very scary when you begin to practice trusting yourself. Much easier, certainly painful, but sometimes it's almost easier to just go back into the thought patterns and wrestle around with the stories and the ideas and the opinions and the speculation and the plans about the past and the future and who said what, who did what. I just saw a person in a restaurant. Was it yesterday? When was that? Yeah, was it Sunday? Mary? Yeah, I saw a person in the restaurant sitting across the table from me that embezzled $17,000 from me and Diane about 16, 17 years ago. Now, I'm not saying I wasn't really upset with that guy when it happened. Diane can remember seeing me practicing loading my gun. And I didn't do that. But I was feeling pretty upset. But I was pretty lethal to this guy because he basically took advantage of the fact that I liked him and trusted him. You know, in the conventional sense of trust, allowed him to do whatever space, let him do whatever he wanted to do, and didn't think he would do that, but he did. And so when I saw him, I hadn't seen him in probably a year or two. Run into him every now and then. Nothing ever happened to him. He just got away completely free. The county, the township ran out of time. Nothing ever. I tried to do something. Nothing ever happened. But so there I'm seeing him, and nothing happens. Nothing. I mean, there's no kind of. If anything, there's a sense of feeling like that must be a difficult life for him. You know, to be doing something like that.
Did he see you?
Yeah, he saw me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's continued to sit there and eat with his family and so on. But you know, that's about the only way you would know is if you're not still carrying around some kind of a deal.
We'll have to watch our creativity because in his position, and he probably has moved all the blocks around in his mind where there's a justification. Ultimately,
you know, that's a good point.
So he's not really living here,
right,
in the present or in this world.
He might be
living up here.
He thinks he did the right thing.
Yeah, he might even be. He's sociopathic in the sense that he might think, well, the guy never paid me enough, and so he's certainly has just his whole story.
Most people can't just blandly do that, so they have a whole story.
Have to have
that's the danger of the storylines.
Yeah.
How we can fool ourselves or create a whole other world so we're not present.
Yeah. So any comments or questions now?
So,
yes. Sheldon.
by saying that you trust yourself, you're just saying that you have faith that you're going to do the right thing and you don't have to consider. That's a pretty good way of approaching it. It's probably even simpler than that. I mean, if you start to tell yourself that, then you're kind of prepping yourself a little bit. But that is it's more like an actual feeling of not knowing what the hell you're going to do. But you know you're there. It's like knowing how to drive a car. You don't go out and kind of think about it unless you're Diane, who has a broken hand. She's got to think everything through because she is missing her main hand. But yeah, you don't. But you do that with totally new situations. A totally new situation. You trust yourself to be in that situation and function. I'm not saying it's easy, and a lot of times we're in a situation where we feel like we want to make a change, and there isn't one. There's no. We keep seeing kind of a fork or showing. Well, I could do this, I could do that, and if it doesn't just start to occur, if you don't get somewhat drawn into it by way of talking about it, probably it's necessary to just stay where you're at and function in that area. We all have probably some kind of a story around that. Priscilla certainly does with your job situation and so on. Which is, it's difficult because we're trying to figure out how to get trust to apply to that so that we can do something. You know, we're trying to figure out a formula where we can.
make it come out